It's always a pleasure to come your way on your favorite station, Metro TV, every Sunday at 3 p.m. with your favorite business program, The Homeowners Show. And it's a pleasure for me to come your way again today as we talk everything about the building and construction industry, including how to acquire and own your own home. And I'm sure that a lot of you are making plans. It's everyone's desire to actually own a home and be comfortable, have a roof over your head. Well, my name is Michael Katahena, and I'm going to be with you for the next 1 hour as we discuss everything concerning this particular space. We're going to go for our very first break. When we come back, I introduce my guests to you and what exactly we're talking about this afternoon. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break, and as you very well know, the Homeowners Show is proudly brought to you by the First National Bank Ghana and CBC Properties, and this afternoon they are right behind us, pushing us all the way through to discuss the very things that matter to you and I as we delve into the world of building and construction. Well, thanks for joining us again, and this afternoon I'm going to introduce two gentlemen who are well versed in their areas of business and are going to help us discuss something this afternoon. Now, we all know how important it is for prospective builders and all the business owners in this particular space, how the prices of products and building materials actually are to them, and when things start to get stabilized, it really affects this particular industry and affects everyone. We're going to talk about that shortly, but before we do that, the Build Up 2022 construction fair says that this comes from the Yoho initiative. Now, last year, First National Bank helped Ghanaians to become homeowners through the Year of Home Ownership Yoho initiative. Now, this year, they are making it easier for you to build that property to your taste or complete the housing project you started. Through the Build Up 2022 initiative, everyone who applies for a home construction loan gets up to 1.5% discount on your interest rate. Now, don't miss out on Build Up 2022. Speak to First National Bank Ghana's experienced team of home loan consultants today to discover more help. You can call us on 0242 435 050 or 0800 770 522 to get started. First National Bank, how can we help you? Now, are you a homeowner who requires financial assistance to meet other pressing needs? Well, First National Bank can help you unlock the value in your house by releasing equity in your property to finance your business, fund your child's education abroad, or any other need. You can speak to First National Bank's experienced team of home loan consultants today to discover more help. You can call them on 0242 435 050 or 0800 770 522 to get started. First National Bank, how can we help you? Now, CBC Properties Limited says I should ask you, why do you have to buy a piece of land now? Well, as Anthony Trollope puts it, and I quote, because land provides the highest returns, the greatest values, the least risks, and of course, it is the only thing that cannot fly away. Now is the best time to own a land in Oyarifa, Pram, East Legon Hills, Adenta, Manfro, Shire Hills, Aimensa, and so on. You can call CBC Properties to schedule for a free site visit on 0303 935 313 or 0262 898 686. Website, catch them on www.cbcghanalimited.com or follow CBC Properties on social media at CBC Ghana Limited on Facebook and on Twitter at CBC Ghana on IG, at CBC Properties on YouTube, and you can find out everything you want there. So we are going straight into the matters for today, and as I started off by saying that it's very important when prices of building materials start fluctuating or start shooting high up, it affects you and I, it affects the building, prospective builders, and of course those in the business. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the effects of high inflation on building materials and whether there are any reliefs or relief measures therein. I mean, it's no news that Ghana is experiencing one of the worst patches considering or talking about the currency. So this afternoon, I have with me two gentlemen who are going to help me discuss this. On the far left, I have Mr. George Wiafe, and he's the business editor, Joy FM. George, you are welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you. And in the middle here, we have Mr. Emmanuel Sherry, and he's the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Construction and Industry, and he's also here to help us discuss this matter in detail. You are very much welcome, sir.
Very much.
It's a great pleasure to have you here. And it's troubling, or would I say, we are in troubling times. I mean, considering the performance of the cedi. I mean, in February this year, I believe that the cedi was probably around 15.7%, so to speak. And then, as we speak now, I think it's about 31.8%. But roughly 2 weeks ago, Bloomberg declared the cedi as the worst performing currency in the world. I mean, they pegged it at around, I think, 35% or so. I mean, we would want to find out really what are the causative factors, what is really pushing the cedi into such uncharted waters, for want of a better word or description. But before we just go into that, I just want us to take a look at this very short story on how the price of cement on the market has been, and then we'll come back and discuss this. Let's take a look.
Since the beginning of the year, developments like inflation and demand and supply have affected the price of cement in Ghana. As of March 2022, a bag of Jata cement was sold between 45 and 50 Ghana cedis, but currently, a 60-kilogram bag of cement is selling at 39 cedis 50 pesos, and a 63-kilogram also going for 49 cedis and 50 pesos in most parts of the country. Sources say increments can be attributed to the depreciating value of the Ghana cedi, the recent hikes in transport fares, and the Russian-Ukraine war, which has affected the movement of logistics and transportation of some of the raw materials from abroad for local production. The development may impact the prices of houses in the short term and the personal budgets of many individuals who are currently putting up houses in the country. Manufacturers have in recent times pushed for the government to take a second look at the taxes on imports and charges at the port.
All right, so you saw that short story there on cement. Now, as we speak, like I said earlier, I mean, the cedi is pegged that high, and this is the worst since, or the highest since 2016, if I'm correct. Most of the building materials we use in this country are imported, so probably it is no secret that we are experiencing these things. But George, let me come first to you. What really are the driving factors causing the cedi to behave this way and thereby affecting everyone? And when I say everyone, all of us are prospective builders or owners of homes and those in the business as well, to get into this particular fix.
A lot of factors, Mike, but you want to look at what are some of the major drivers. And you are in a period where people want to import for the Christmas festivities. So you remember that the pressure started building up in July, going into August. That is where people are trying to get dollars, get LCs from banks to import for the December rush and the December facilities as well. And therefore, that was a major factor because people were then demanding dollars around that time. Also, don't forget that there are some issues about some investors who bought into our bonds as well. And for some of these guys, when they heard about certain things about the economy being not that good, when the time was due, when the bonds matured, instead of rolling those bonds over, yes, they were calling these bonds. And we don't print dollars in this country. So they also started demanding their dollars that, okay, listen, I brought in about $200 million. I brought in about $300 million. I'm not rolling over. So I send an instruction to my bank or my local bond purchaser that get from the Bank of Ghana, I need my money. So there was a lot of pressure in terms of demand. And it's a demand supply thing. And we don't print dollars in this country. So if we are not engaged in a lot of exports where we can earn dollars, and all these things coupled with what has happened to the economy and the uncertainty about the outlook, the downgrade, the demand was so much that it appears that people realize that, okay, listen, it appears that things are getting bad. And then people also thought that, listen, with the way the city is depreciating, if I even need dollars in September, in October, let me rush out there and get dollars. And that compounded the issue. So you're realizing what is happening over the past 2 weeks is that there have been some marginal stability. And you realize that someone will argue that maybe what was driving this depreciation was not really about the fiscal issue, which is a major challenge as well. But those who felt uncomfortable and were worried that, listen, come 2 months' time, looking at the way things are going, if I don't rush to get dollars right now, even though I don't need it, then things will be worse. So you realize that people were going out, people were even removing their cedis in their bank accounts, about 100,000 Ghana cedis to go and buy dollars. And that fear, that uncertainty, the way things were going, pushed the thing and everything was getting wayward. But now that we've had news that, okay, some inflows have come in, that is the 750 Afri-Exim loan has come in, and then also the cocoa loan syndication, they're coming in somewhere around next month. And also discussions that, listen, Ghana could have a program with the IMF by the last quarter of this year, even the first quarter of this year. You realize that that news that went out, again, is trying to put that demand down a little bit, because you realize that people were rushing to demand dollars when they don't actually need those dollars. And that was pushing the depreciation. You have a situation where a company, the Bank of Ghana has a system where companies will bid for dollars to finance their imports. And there's a situation where a company just needs about $100 million or something to finance their imports. Because of the fear that they are not going to get all this money, you have about maybe 5 bids going to the Bank of Ghana. And that also sent a signal that people need dollars so much. So basically, demand for dollars outstrips supply. That is why we saw things getting out of hand. And the bit about the fact that people were also afraid that things are getting out of gear, government revenue is not doing well. These offshore investors were demanding their bonds. That brought a lot of pressure on the Bank of Ghana. You saw that their reserves were depleting. Anytime anybody watched the Bank of Ghana's reserves and they are depleting, you want to rush out there and get dollars. And for me, you can accuse people of whatever, but listen, every rational businessman would want to hedge against inflation.
Naturally.
My big brother who is here, who is into construction, listen, it was so bad at a point in time that at every day, the numbers were changing.
Yeah.
And if you are a prudent person, you want to hedge against that loss. You want to rush out there and acquire as much as you can when it comes to the dollars, because the prices are changing every day. And that was just not good for business, because that's why some businessmen will argue that, listen, we don't mind the dollar even being 1 Ghana cedi, 20 Ghana cedi to a dollar. As long as it's stable for at least even like 3 months, we can plan. So all these uncertainties were pushing so much demand for dollars. And that is why we saw the cedi going down against the dollar almost about 40%.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some stability right now. And that's just a temporary relief, because we'll come to the first quarter of next year where people are also trying to import to restock for the year.
Exactly.
And the pressure will come again.
And that's what I was just coming to. I mean, as we head into December, I mean, for an economy that's basically, largely import-based, I mean, we're going to find lots of people trying to get a lot of dollars to pull in, especially for the Christmas festivities.
Yeah.
And one would say, and probably maybe that's where I come to you, Mr. Sherry, but one would say that we wouldn't have gotten to this particular point. I mean, now we're thinking of immediate or temporary solutions to medium-term solutions and all that to help stabilize the city, but we would have probably gotten here if we probably weren't so dependent on other countries for the things that we need, basically. I mean, it's largely an import-based. I mean, we talk about Ghana being an agrarian economy, this and that, but we do virtually nothing. And probably that is one of the reasons why, and I'm sure George hit on that, harped on that briefly in his statement. And that is what is really killing us here. But I'm sure you want to add a few things as to what are really the driving factors.
Okay, thank you very much. To add to what my good brother George said, you know, we had a privilege to meet the Bank of Ghana governor and then his lieutenants. So a lot of issues were tabled for discussion concerning the construction industry entirely. for us to see alternative ways of funding projects. Because it has been a challenge to us, the construction industry players. So therefore, if we sit down to fold our hands and throw our hands to the air, expecting miracles to happen, we may end up folding up and then losing our investment. So in as much as we want to protect our investment, what must we do? Quickly, we need to draw closer to the policymakers to make sure that, and then the regulators to make sure that at least we dialogue and come out with proparables, tangibles, recommendations that we believed can be a game changer. But in addition to what my brother earlier said, you know, most of the foreign companies within the country, they trade within here, but any time at all their financial year ends, they need to repatriate their profit to their home country. If that happens, it puts pressure on the cedi. So the demand of dollar or pound sterling becomes a little higher. That's another factor the government is not looking at too. Because most of the companies, expatriate companies, their financial year is ending. Some of them started last month, others this month, others will be going to be next month. So what we are seeing, the 750 million we're talking about is not going to solve any problem. Because the demand from now going to October is going to be higher than what we are seeing today. So it's very good that we are here today talking about this. So government must listen. And let's speak it, because the expatriate, most of them are going to expatriate their 100% profit to their home country. You like it or not? What policy measure have you put in place to curtail this? So this is, how do you call it, a teaser to the government for him to take a look at.
George,
I think that on the monetary side, and thumbs up to the team at the Bank of Ghana, they've done what they are supposed to do. The problem is the fiscal situation, and where we are not seeing more being done in the fiscal space. When it comes to the repatriation of profit, I know what the Bank of Ghana has done with some of these multinationals, where they've instructed these banks to stagger the repatriation of these money, because our FX market is not that huge that anytime somebody moves like $100 million to it shakes the market. And
so you mean that it shouldn't really be a problem?
No, I'm saying that it's a problem, but yes, certain steps have been taken where they've instructed these banks that if a multinational wants to move maybe about $200 million out, stagger that repatriation out. And that will reduce the pressure a little bit, because it was a major problem. And one multinational that said that they were sending out dividend payment was moving around $300 million out.
That's quite huge.
And our foreign exchange market is not that strong that a little thing, it shakes the market, the rates go haywire. So one thing that the Bank of Ghana has done with these commercial banks is that stagger the payment that you send out, so that way the market can absorb. Because I think that if we come to understand that Ghana doesn't print dollars, our mode of exchange is the Ghana cedi. And therefore, if you are demanding so much dollars, where is it going to come from if we are not exporting that much as an economy? If you go to the Bank of Ghana's financial and economic data that released in July ending, that is June ending, we spent $5.2 billion in importing non-oil items into the country. That will involve the Brazilian hair, that will involve all sorts of things. And if we don't try and build that habit of consuming what we have here, listen, there's an argument that will be made that, oh, you know, foreign taste. But during COVID time, where was the foreign taste? Where imports dropped significantly, but we managed to get substitutes locally to consume. So it tells you that apart from policy, there should be a deliberate attempt to get alternative for some of these products. If we are getting $5.2 billion, if you look at the Bank of Ghana's reserves or dollar reserves, at that time, it was $7.6 billion dollars. This is what they have in their reserves. Now, this is what we spent ending June for non-oil. Oil might seem as a very essential stuff, but what about the other stuff that are not that essential? That even we are importing water, we are importing eggs, day-old chicks are being imported. And where, if you are not exporting much as an economy, where are you getting those dollars to do that?
And that is why I was quite troubled. I mean, policy-wise. I mean,
importing cassava as well.
It's ridiculous. I mean, can't there be more stringent policies to help curtail or streamline?
If you go through our laws in Ghana, I think that Ghana is one of the countries that has all the laws in place. The problem has to do with the enforcement of these laws. And I'm saying that, listen, when I would not blame any person who is in the real estate industry that see or do the extrapolations and realize that the city is going to go down further, they will go out there and grab the city. When you have a port where a state agency is pricing in dollars, what would you expect that person to do? Cements have gone up to 73 Ghana cedis. And when you engage these manufacturers, they tell you that everything at the port priced in foreign exchange, but rather indexed in dollars. So when that person sees that rate out there, listen, I know the city is not stable. I will go and build up dollars in my bank for that rainy day when I don't need it now. Because when my boss goes out there and demand about $200 million and take it from the black market, you are in the oil import business. You need that dollars that much to finance the oil to come to the country and support us. You have deprived that person that needs that much dollars to bring in an essential good into the economy.
Yeah, you're right.
So if we have to enforce the law where we kick against dollarization, where everything is priced in dollars. Because listen, the psychological effect, if a school is pricing in dollars, as a parent, I want to have a bank account. The last time we checked with the Bank of Ghana, you have over $4.something billion in terms of accounts in this country, if you put together the corporates and individuals. And these are people who are holding dollar accounts. Because when they are sending their child to that school is collecting $3,000 a term. And therefore, if I want to hedge and ensure that I get dollars to pay, I will hold dollars in my account and deprive businessmen that need these dollars
It's
to
a
work.
national thing
And that
to
is
do.
what is feeding into the real thing that we are complaining about.
Do you sense a certain lack of will to implement? Because this is common or public knowledge.
One thing we must also not forget about is government who's supposed to lead is also at the, at fault. Because almost everything that he counts pricing is in dollars. Even our budget is quoted in what?
Exactly.
So
what
They'll
you're
give
saying.
the CD, the CD equivalent,
to
and then
somebody's
they
currency
give,
over
they
that
give,
of yours.
They give the
So
dollar
you have
equivalent to
belittled
some of
your
them.
currency and then promoting somebody's currency. What do you expect them to do? Which means if you are promoting somebody's currency free of charge, then what do you expect your citizens to do or the business community to do?
Exactly.
They all cash in there because they believe that that is where your value is. You see? So government also must try as much as possible to start moving.
George, do you sense a lack of will? Because like I said before, he came in. I mean, this is public knowledge. These figures that you are putting out there, it's public knowledge. We all know this. Yeah. And the experts know the steps to take, the policies, how to probably tighten the policies and to make sure that a lot of these things are streamlined. Do you sense a certain lack of will?
I think that the FX laws are there. BOG might do its part. Government also has to do its part in ensuring that these laws are enforced. And for me, it's very critical. Yes, we will blame people who have migrated to a dollar economy here in this country. There are places where they, even bars, you go there and they're charging in dollars and all the rest. But the best form of dealing with a dollarized economy is to stabilize your local city and give confidence in your local city. You give confidence in your local city by helping encourage that culture of exports and supporting local industries to export more. Then we earn dollars. And if we don't do that, and you have a situation where it's more, and I know my friends in Guta will disagree and get angry at me, where it's more cheaper to bring in a good from outside compared to those who are manufacturing those goods here in this country. Obviously, there's an incentive to then go and get these dollars and import. Because if certain, you marvel at some of the things that are being imported, and you ask yourself, Burkina Faso tomatoes, what is happening here? What are the policies that we're talking about inflation? And you see that there are a lot of goods and commodities being produced in the rural areas. What are the measures in place to deal with these post-harvest losses so that even we get enough and we export? Because listen, if everybody comes to understand that we don't print dollars in this country, if you go ahead demanding dollars, then this is what is going to happen to your city. You have people who go out and complain in Bank of Ghana and government dollar, but they are the chief architects of importing used clothing, and when you go to the port, you marvel at some of the things that are being imported. And they need
Nigeria,
dollars.
was it not just a year or two ago?
Yeah.
What happens? They close their borders. What happens? Check their, how do you call it?
Well, some will say it's against the spirit of ECOWAS because some will say that is not fair.
Exactly, but you
and
need
it's
the
not.
law.
you need to deliberately take certain
it changed the
steps.
taste. The preference of the citizenry was redirected.
But Mike,
it's quite difficult.
But Mike,
it's quite
I find it interesting when people raise the argument of acquired foreign taste, because during COVID, when it was difficult to import, what were the substitutes?
The barest minimum. I mean,
listen, I use a sanitizer.
Really
I won't mention the name because, but listen, that is so good that it's produced in this country, and I've been using that sanitizer since COVID, about 2 years ago. And these are the things that, listen, if we claim that you have taste for a foreign mineral water that is being produced outside, and you cannot consume all the fine mineral water that are produced in this country, and therefore, at any point in time, that company out there has to go and queue at Bank of Ghana for dollars, put pressure, and bring in these mineral water to consume here. That is what didn't happen.
What do we do? You see, it's now our time for us to take the bull by its horn. As I said earlier, the policy makers as well as implementers, the regulators, must take the lead. Bank of Ghana has all the good policies and regulations that we have, the regulations that we have in there. But the implementation is where the challenge is. How do you call it? His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, he came with a mantra, Ghana beyond aid. He started this, but Buhari has taken a swab out of it, and then he has implemented. Buhari has taken the lead from him, even though he came with a mantra, he's still singing it. But as we speak now, it's not having any ripple effect on the economy. What are we doing? So the time has come for us to take the bull by its horns. Let's hold it by the way it's supposed to be, so that we protect the local economy. The local economy can only be protected if we give incentive to local manufacturers to build, to construct or manufacture whatsoever that we believe that we can consume here, so that we close border on some of the foreign materials. If that happens, automatically, as he said, we'll develop appetite for foreign, local taste.
I think that should be a gradual thing, because you see, the WTO rules, I agree with you perfectly.
Is Nigeria not part of them?
I know, but you know, a lot of countries came up against Nigeria. Nigeria may have
unfair
that because,
practice,
you're operating in a community where there are WTO rules that guide you, or now even you should even...
It's quite tricky, it's quite difficult, really.
I understand it, but it should be a gradual thing. But as the policy person, the fiscal, government tries to enforce these things, and I think that they still have to do a lot. But I'm just saying that whilst they enforce the thing, and you continue to walk into that shop and go for a bottled water that is imported, it's going to give an incentive to that importer that, listen, there is still demand out there. Because if we don't realize that there is a challenge, whatever policy that will be implemented, how many times have you seen Bank of Ghana warn people out there that, listen, don't price... No, I'm not holding brief. You understand me? Do you have a situation where there are whole mechanisms you have to go through, even if you want to close down a shop or a forex bureau that is flouting these FX laws? You need the Attorney General, you need the police, you need a law.
So what happened to the forex market?
No,
you see, those, how do you call it, for Al-Hajis and what have you, out there changing monies and what have you, holding monies, and what are they doing to them?
I'm just saying that these things have to be tactical.
If you travel outside the country,
I know.
Just imagine
a zero tolerance, South Africa.
You can't.
I get you.
You understand me? So that it's about enforcing the laws.
It's a free to all. Just walk from here to Circle. You have a number of people who will be holding dollars trying to change.
I mean, this is where policy comes in, and then to tighten some of these things. But now that, I mean, we'll come back to this so-called taste for foreign taste, because sometimes a lot of arguments have been made that sometimes some of these imported or foreign products sometimes come cheaper, and it is to the detriment of the local
because
products.
they're being subsidized in the economy. They are being subsidized.
Yes, and we have a lot of things
you have a benchmark value that has been dropped. I know my good friends will be against me. That makes it more cheaper than that person who's importing here.
We'll come back to that discussion. But now that inflation has been established as a key influence, I mean, in driving price, I mean, the increase in the price of building materials may be subject to other factors, which I'm sure probably you might want to harp on. What picture does this paint for the industry? I mean, going from now, I mean, starting from the beginning of this year, it didn't start from this year, but it's been horrible this year. And going forward, what picture does it paint really for the building industry?
It has posed a significant threat to the building industry, the construction industry entirely. Because as we speak now, we have three methods, how to call it, building materials that we normally, use in the construction space. We have the traditional building materials. If you go by the traditional building material, we have the sand, we have the laterite, we have the bamboos, we have thatch, and those normal traditional materials that our forefathers has been using in the past. Then they come out to a very nice building that you don't even need air conditions to. They're still there. If it goes to conventional building materials, that is where the issue comes in. That's a foreign taste. Today we speak, we have a cement that we import outside the country, into the country, Ghana. So any manufacturer who is in that space automatically is preparing to go and import clinker. Clinker constitutes almost 95% of cement production. So that tells you that without clinker, cement cannot see its completion stage. Meanwhile, if you go to pozzolana cement, we have only lime. Lime plays almost 60 to 70% of pozzolana cement. We don't need so much chemicals that we can at least easily go into. And we have in abundance, in excess in the country here. But because of the taste we have for foreign, properties or foreign goods, what do? We prefer going to clinker cement.
I'll come back to you in a bit on that, because I believe that all stakeholders in this particular space should be able to help drive this desire and the use of local materials. I mean, the experts, when it comes to architects, when it comes to engineers and all that, I think they also have a role to play. But you're watching the Homeowner Show right here on Metro TV, and we've been speaking to Mr. George Wiafe, and he is the business editor of Joy FM, and Mr. Emmanuel Shai, who's sitting next to me, CEO of Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry. And we've been talking about the effects of high inflation on building materials and whether there are any reliefs therein. Well, the Homeowner Show is brought to you by kind courtesy of the First National Bank, Ghana, and CBC Properties. We're going to step out for a quick break. When we come back, we talk a bit more about how probably we can find solutions, and then we'll also be taking your questions and your submissions as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break, and we've been talking about the effects of high inflation on building materials, and discussing also whether there are any reliefs that can be suggested. But if you're watching the Homeowner Show, which is kindly brought to you by the First National Bank, Ghana, and CBC Properties, then you also want to find out about Majel Enterprise, which is the pioneer in innovative building and construction materials with over 20 years of experience in Ghana. We supply notable brands like Era, George Fisher Hakan Plastics, Pearson Ferrat Plastic, EMS Force, Interplast, Bosch Power Tools, Leo Pumps, and many more. Majel is also the sole distributor of cast products in Ghana. You can call Majel Enterprise for all your hardware supplies on 0207 672 965 or 0540 573 421. You can also locate them on social media at Majel Enterprise. Locate Majel at Spintex Ecobank at Dogono Road, opposite the Shell station. Majel Enterprise, if it's not quality, it's not Majel. And if you want to get the very best of clothing, like what I'm wearing here, well, Sub-Saharan Fashion brand has great shirts available for you. Now, great shirts are worn by great men with integrity. That's the philosophy behind Sub-Saharan Fashion brand. At Sub-Saharan Fashion, our choice of fabric is inspired by our culture and heritage. The temperament of our clients contribute to the choice of fabric and colors to use. At the end, we create an art piece which is custom made for one person only. If you want to patronize the brand reserved for men with integrity, you can call or WhatsApp Sami on 0264017512 for your orders. On social media, find them at Sub-Saharan Fashion, and you would have your needs met. So back again on the effects of high inflation, and to George Wiafe and Mr. Emmanuel Sherry, I mean, off air, we're talking about the fact that you probably might want to push or punch the button of patriotism and all that. But for businesses, they would want to stay afloat. They want to
break even.
Yes, to break even. And so you can't really blame them for. I mean, there are a lot of manufacturing companies now that are even into imports right now, just to help keep the body and soul together. But this issue about, which also drives the prices of goods up, of foreign products and the taste of foreign products as against locally manufactured products. I mean, sometimes just before we went off air, we were talking about the fact that it's easier because we've created an environment where it's easier for the one who imports really yes, pitch. I mean, you talk about water, you want to talk about even fabric, you want to talk about, and a lot of our companies are struggling. They're dealing with taxes, they're dealing with utilities, and the demand for even higher salaries and pay and all that, as against these foreign or imported products. So you cannot, for a company to break even or to survive, you would have to price reasonably at a certain point to make ends meet, and you cannot battle or fight some of these imported products.
And you're right on that, Mike, because if you look at, you're bringing in a good from China, that good is heavily subsidized by their government in there. They are giving rebates to these manufacturing firms, and it's heavily subsidized. When it gets to the port, there's supposed to be a benchmark value where it's making it a little bit cheaper to bring in this good. Now, come to the country or come to the local economy, and this manufacturing firm that is here is dealing with a high cost of power that he has to deal with. He has to deal with interest rate that is very, very high. He has to deal with workers that are demanding for more or improved salary. So he has to deal with all these things, and when he produced that good, how does he price that manufacturing good for houses and all those things out there? And therefore, what is happening now is that majority of them are saying that if you can't beat them, join them. But also import all our goods from outside so that we can equally compete on the market. So there's a policy intervention there, that thing that I think that gradually something has to be done to make those goods that we can produce locally a little bit expensive out there. And you talk about inflation. You go to the cost service data and you realize what were the drivers. Transport is a major factor. Fuel is a major factor. So if we made some windfall from the export of crude as a country, why don't we use that windfall to subsidize fuel prices a little bit? If we cannot even take off the taxes. If you subsidize that one, you go a long way to deal with the space at which inflation is rising in the country. And that is what you can do. If you deal with transport, it fuels the cost of moving some of these inputs for building across the country. It brings it down. So then you're able to tame inflation, because listen, inflation is the biggest thief. It's taking the value of your money out. It is increasing the cost of servicing our debts. It is throwing everything out of gear. So if you don't take those steps to deal with inflation, your cement block is going up, your cement is going up, your cables are going up, everything is going up.
It's a problem. George, let me just take this opportunity to invite viewers to send in their questions and suggestions, and I'm sure that you'll also be getting ready to ask your questions by phoning in 055 300 0035, 055 300 0035. Now, there's an interesting question from a viewer here. This is Priscilla from Taifa. I mean, she says, whose responsibility is it to build confidence and taste for locally produced materials? I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about.
It's a gradual thing. The policy, and I'm saying that if you go through our laws, we have one of the finest laws when it comes to these foreign exchange laws and all the rest. Enforcement, we have a long way to go to enforce these laws. Sometimes there has to be that political will to take that bold step to enforce.
Exactly the point I was making earlier.
Very, very, and I agree with him.
Yes.
But also on the flip side as well, if you can, I mean, listen, some of the rices that are grown in this country, perfume, they are good.
Very good.
Look at our boarding system and the buffer stock. There should be a deliberate policy where all these boarding houses or schools purchase your rice from contractors or suppliers that are going to supply with local rice.
Exactly.
Again, it deals with that challenge there, so that we don't go ahead and demand so much dollars to import these
Very
things.
true.
So the laws are there,
The
but
implementation.
if we don't enforce
them.
and also at the personal level, try and develop local substitute for some of these things. The Brazilian hair, there are certain hair that are produced in this country that are also very good of quality.
Do you
as well.
think that probably it's not just one being or the consumer being accustomed to foreign or having developed a taste for the foreign product? Is it not really about numbers? It's not really about prices out there? Because I think for most people now, it's about affordability, isn't it?
Yeah, affordability also counts because honestly speaking, everybody wants to break an even. The business community is also trying as much as possible to at least break a profit to make sure that he also stay in business. So as a real estate developer or a contractor in that space, he's also trying as much as possible to help alleviate the shortage or the housing deficit or the infrastructure deficit in that space. But the person is also not doing it for free. He's also borrowing money against high interest rate. So what is the interest rate in the market today? Which is the driving force. So if a contractor or a real estate developer goes into the market to take money from the financial sector, he's also expecting that if he finishes production, he must also break an even. So after finishing, the dollar rate, most of the items, as you said, almost 80% is being imported outside the country.
It's sad. I'll come back to you on it. Just hold that thought for me. George, there's an interesting one. Somebody is pinching you here. He says, George seems to be defending the government and preventing the other guests from telling us the reality. Well, Tanko from Tema, I don't think that's what, if you listen to George carefully, I don't think that's what he's doing. But I think we have Godwin on the line from Botiano, if I am not mistaken. Godwin?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Godwin. Please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Sure.
I want to make this short contribution.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. My problem is, if the government was able at the time to issue what you call executive instrument to curb people from going about doing certain things that were, contravention to the COVID situation. What is stopping the government today to issue the same, executive instrument to curb these, the Goro boys from Tudu? Master, I'm telling you right now, if you like, let's go to Tudu. The police office, under the police officers, we have the Greater Accra Police Command in Accra. We have the MTTD in Accra. All of them are just walking by, these people sitting there. Boss, nothing is being done. And I think the police officers are also corporate.
Well,
the police officers.
Godwin, I think your question is quite clear. Yeah, would you want to respond to that?
I think I was already on that path.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. To be honest with you, it's about implementation.
Yeah.
The government must have the ball to crack the whip, to take the lead. Bank of Ghana, the time has come for it to crack the whip. Because if you go to the forest market, it's free for all. How does it control as a regulator? It's a question that we want answers from. But coming back to my space, that's a construction which matters to me so much.
Of course, yes.
You know, we have a driving force that normally drive the market of real estate and the construction space. As I said earlier, 80% of building materials is being imported outside the country. So that tells you that where we are. Tiles, even though we are manufacturing, we have a tile manufacturing factories here, but let's ask ourselves, just opposing the price for comparison, comparing to the foreign and that of the local, the difference is clear.
Yeah.
So since everybody want to, make a break an even or make profit, how do? You go for the cheaper one, even it's quality and cheaper. So it is about time that governments must look within, domesticate the entire economy, so that those who are trying to at least do something in those space, it should try to help them.
Yeah.
But the type of politics we practice in this part of Africa, especially Ghana, is about NDC MPP. So if they tag you to be NDC Aparachiki, then prepare for it. If NDC comes, you are going down. If they tag you to be NDC Aparachiki, if NPP comes, you are going down. With this, how can the economy thrive? So if just this happened, then they always, trying to run after one another, making sure that they pull you down so that I also come and pay you back in your own coin.
Let me
so
ask
they
you.
are not helping the country, but they are helping the downfall of the country.
Let me ask you, do other industry players, I mean stakeholders as I referred to earlier, also have a role to play? I mean, talk about engineers, architects, contractors. I mean, in the use or the choice of materials in doing these projects?
In the design,
yes.
As I said earlier, we have preference. That's innovation. So as I said earlier, we have 3 types of building materials. The traditional one, the conventional one, and the innovative one. The traditional one, as barely known, is the cement bricks, how do you call it, clays and what have you, laterite and what have you. But if you go to the conventional one, that's where we have cement blocks, we have cement, we have, asphalt, we have, bituminous, products and what have you. All those things, especially the oil, component, you can get them in the crude. Ghana, thankfully, God has not made a mistake. He has given us crude. What do we do to it? What value do we add to the crude? We export it outside and then import the finished products. And then if you should, do electoral research, you realize that the products that crude can give to the economy of this country, it will blow your mind. We can get bituminous plant materials out of it, asphalts, these products, shoes, chalewate, a lot of things. These crude, oils and what have you. A lot of products from it. But we are giving it to somebody else and take the finished product, and then they are developing their economy. And at the end of the day, we can't be shouting, making noise.
Can you hold your thought on that as we go to Charles from Teshi? Charles, I'm sure you're on the line. Hello, Charles.
Yeah, hello.
Fantastic. Please go ahead with your question.
The question is, hello?
Yes, Charles, please go ahead.
The question is, though I want to make a little contribution before I ask the question.
Kindly make it brief. Yes, go ahead.
I support the man in the Fugu totally. We are living in a country where we price everything. When you go to those big hotels, I don't want to mention them, they price most of their things in dollars. Like the man said, when we do that, we are promoting somebody's currency and downgrading our own. So people will develop the taste for the foreign currency more than as compared to our own currency. But the question is, who must take the lead? Is the government. So what is the government doing about it?
Okay.
Finance minister, you go to parliament and go and read your own budget in dollars.
Thank you very much, Charles. But I think, to be fair to the businessman, like we said earlier, it's about staying afloat and business. So if we want to talk about patriotism here as against profits and surviving,
it doesn't work. But you see, we're talking about inflation and the city's depreciation.
Yeah.
And for me, the city, yes, but the biggest thing that is within our control is inflation. Now, look at if you go to the July data, what were the major drivers here? You're looking at transport, you're looking at fuel, looking at house, electricity, gas.
So what can be done?
So these two things put together were about 80% of the driver of the inflation in our economy. Government has a role in there to play.
I agree.
Transport fares. What is the driver of the transport fares going up? Fuel prices. We have made over $700 million in terms of windfall ending June or July from crude prices going up. Can we use part of that to cushion prices of petroleum products?
They would argue that other sectors of the economy are demanding.
Yeah, but I know. But today, Germany announced that they are going to use about $70 billion or $50 billion or something euros to kind of suppress inflation. If you go to America, they pass a policy of trying to check inflation. At any point in time, there has to be a drastic effort to tame inflation. And how do you tame inflation? You look at the major driver of inflation, and it's fuel. So if you think that it's costing you to do that, what inflation is doing to you is that it's actually depriving you of your revenue that you're going to get.
What do we do to our group?
It's depriving you. It's actually shooting your interest cost, the loans that you borrowed, up. So if you think it's expensive to take that money and just check the fuel prices, this is what inflation is doing. It's stealing the value of the money that you're holding right now, and it becomes worthless. So I'm just saying that city inflation, that is, if we don't take that bold steps right now, things could get out of hand.
George,
let me make nonsense of all the numbers that you're talking about.
Can you hold that thought for me? Because I'm very sure that what you're saying is not strange, or is not just dropping from Mars. I mean, I'm sure they're very much aware of this, but sometimes you really wonder whether there is a will, as we said earlier on. But we have Bright from Elubo on the line. Bright, if you're still there, kindly give your question or contribution. If you want to pass it on to any of them, you can do that. Hello, Bright.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Bright. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Kindly give your question.
Yeah, please, I'd like to speak. Yeah, I have suggestions to lead.
Please ask your question again. Hello, yes, Bright. Sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. I'd like to speak to you, please.
That's fine. Please go ahead. And okay, please make it brief, yes.
Okay. Let them say discussion about the building materials, But my suggestion is, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
My suggestion is, yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, I think that Bright is having a problem with his line there. But we have Albert from Ashaiman, and he says, good discussion. But can't the government give subsidies and incentives to local producers to help relieve the high cost of building in the country? I mean, I think you suggested something like that in your submission. And then we have Kwame Abu from Edubiase. He says, my question is, can we start the conversation of price control on all building materials? Going back to the days of price control.
When I say something, someone say that different. But you see, the reality on the ground is that it won't be fair to my boss here when it's costing so much. And that's why they say, allow the forces of demand and supply sometimes dictate the pace, sometimes. Because if you try to go and control his price, he's going to lose. And therefore, if you're going to control his price, then compensate him for that loss. Mm-hmm. You understand me? If you're not going to compensate him, someone's going to say, listen, price at this, I will take care of your cost. Indirectly, when you are going to take care of that cost, it has to do with the cost of credit as well. Yeah. The cost of importing. And I'm saying that if it's so cheap to import, it is a little bit cheaper to import than to produce locally. That is how indirectly government can control price. By dealing with the cost of importing these goods out there. If you go out there and also subsidize the cost of credit or do things that will drive down the cost of credit, you are indirectly controlling price, because when it's cheaper for him to get credit from the bank, obviously he's going to pass it on to you and I. So you cannot indirectly come out and control price, but indirectly you can control price by making credit cheap. You can control price by checking inflation, because if it's cheap to produce here, Michael, you will get it when you walk onto the market.
Naturally. George, just give me a little second to do our tidbits for now, and then we will probably wrap up our conversation here. And this is coming from First National Bank Ghana. They say, on the home construction loan, do you require financial support to build a residential property on your plot of land? Well, speak to First National Bank to help you build to your specifications or complete that housing project you already started. Next, the home construction loan gives you funds to build your property and repay within a maximum period of 20 years. Interest rates can't be fixed or variable. Now, to qualify for a home construction loan, the property must be for residential use. The borrower must provide proof of ownership of the land evidenced by land title certificate, fully registered indenture, or any other document acceptable to First National Bank. You can call them on 0242 435 050 or 0800 770 522 to get started. So that is our tidbits. Those are our tidbits for today. I really wanted to ask a question or two, but it's strange when you're in good company. Time really flies, as they say, but we've run out of time here and we cannot continue the conversation anymore. But I'm sure that I'll give you the benefit of just 30 seconds. Quickly, we ran out of time here.
Yeah, as said earlier, the market needs to be regulated. So in the real estate sector, you realize that we don't have a proper regulator. So that's with the wisdom of this government, they are promoting a bill called Housing Authority. Okay. If that comes to force, automatically it's going to at least bring sanity within the space.
Within the space.
The same applies to the contractors as well. But most of the times too, if any developer want to develop, they must also pay critical attention to professionalism, because that's the reasons why we have architects there, we have engineers there,
sorry,
we have surveyors there.
Here.
So they should try as much as possible to get the explicit advice from these people.
We would have to wrap it up here. It's been an interesting conversation. I'm sure that we need much more time to discuss this. Thank you very much, George and Emmanuel, for joining us on this show. It's been a homeowner show coming your way, proudly brought to you by First National Bank Ghana and CBC Properties. Make sure you join us again same time, Sunday next week.